Hey, what's up guys, Cut of Truth here, bringing you all a game here of Rush Attack on Strike at Karkin, running in the Engineer class with the Scar H as my primary weapon, and the MP412 Rex as my sidearm. I'm going to be reviewing both of these weapons in today's video, so I hope you guys enjoy it. One thing I do want to say, excuse me, before getting into the review, is that during a certain point in the video, I actually run out of ammo with my Scar and have to switch over to my Rex. And I didn't really feel like picking up another kit, so I just stayed with my Rex, and I actually did a pretty good job. I went on a nice little tear with it, so I hope you guys will enjoy some pistol gameplay. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started here. First weapon we're going to look at will be the Scar H. It is a 14,000 point unlock in the Engineer class, and is the first weapon you unlock while playing through the Engineer class. The rounds per minute is a very slow 600. It's actually the slowest in the Engineer class, and it also has a pretty slow 420 meters per second bullet speed. However, it makes up for that with a max damage of 30 out to 8 meters and a minimum damage of 20 at 50 meters. The magazine size holds 20 rounds plus 1 in the chamber for a total of 21, and it will reload in 2.25 seconds while you still have a bullet chambered, and 2.85 seconds while your magazine is completely dry. The threshold multiplier on the Scar H is 0.75. And when it comes to recoil, the Scar has got very heavy vertical recoil, and it's got pretty medium horizontal recoil. Now, this makes it kind of tricky when deciding whether or not to use the foregrip. Some people will say, yes, the foregrip is, a must on this weapon. Others can say, no, I can do just fine without it. Really, for me, it boils down to a personal choice. When I like to run the Scar, I like to go for controlling the recoil over really anything else, whether it be putting the heavy barrel on there. As you guys know, I think that attachment is very, very powerful. But when it comes to the Scar, that's one of the weapons I actually don't use the heavy barrel for. And the reason for that is just because that vertical recoil is so high. The flash suppressor allows me to control this weapon a lot easier and to get kills faster and more effectively. Whereas the heavy barrel, oftentimes, I have to really be right on target with every single bullet. Whereas the flash suppressor, I can kind of easily control it. And if I miss a few, it's not a big deal. I can easily drag my crosshairs back on top of the guy to finish him. Whereas a heavy barrel, sometimes I just struggle with it just because the recoil is so heavy when it comes to that upwards recoil. And yes, the foregrip does reduce your aimed accuracy. However, the Scar is a pretty accurate gun. And a lot of people just assume that slow-firing guns actually are accurate range. I mean, there is some truth to that, but the Scar is a fairly accurate gun. I think something like an AKS-74U is almost a bit more accurate for me whenever I'm really comparing these weapons side by side. I find that I do better at range with the AKS versus the Scar, but the Scar is kind of overall a weird gun for me, and well, here's why. It's got a very slow fire rate, as I've said, 600 rounds. The magazine size very small, only holds 20 rounds, and the recoil is very heavy, with that vertical recoil being pretty high and a pretty medium horizontal recoil. And the max damage of this weapon is only 30. I don't think that's good enough. I really think that this weapon should go back to having 34 max damage. And before you start screaming at me and say, no, that's way too powerful, think about that. All those negative things I just said. Slow fire rate, high recoil, and low magazine. This weapon doesn't do enough damage for me. It really does not do enough damage. I don't feel effective with this gun. I can't kill as fast. I mean, it doesn't work for me. Now, there's some games I do really, really well with this gun. That's because this weapon, if you take your time, this gun, you can really, really drop guys fast, especially with that flash suppressor controlling your recoil. And it will do that high damage pretty far out of range if you put the heavy barrel on there. But once again, I don't think that's high enough, because a weapon like a G3A3 only fires 50 rounds a minute slower, but yet has a 34 max damage. Really, how is that G3 really any different than the Scar? If anything, I mean, it's more accurate at range. Can still kill in close quarters. So it's like they've taken the old Scar and now put it on the G3, which really doesn't make any sense to me. I would really love to see the Scar be returned back to its really former glory of being a really, really powerful weapon, because I hardly ever see this gun anymore. I really just don't ever see the Scar H. All I see is stuff like the M4A1, the A91, G36C is really the Engineer guns I see. I used to see the Scar a ton back when Battlefield 3 first released, and even after the December patch, I still saw the Scar a fair number of the time, but now just don't ever see it. And it is a very good gun that has got a couple of negative sides to it, but I think a damage buff would really, really help this gun out. Because it is a pretty accurate gun when it comes to medium range. It's not the most accurate, but it does do a good job. And in close quarters, actually, if you put a laser sight on there, you can be pretty effective. So once again, guys, I think the Scar H overall, decent gun, but I still feel that a high damage when it comes to the weapon, as far as its max minimum damage, really is needed. And it really does need a buff because right now it's a little too nerfed for me to use effectively. Alright, so that wraps it up for the SCAR, and let's go ahead and move on to the MP412 Rex that I have switched to here because I have run out of ammo in my SCAR. The MP412 Rex is a 5,000 point co-op unlock. Fires at 220 rounds per minute with a 300 meters per second bullet speed, and yes, that is faster than the 44 Magnum. A lot of guys think that the Magnum and the Rex fire at the same speed. No, the Rex fires at 30 rounds a minute faster, and that for me is good and it's bad because when firing faster, the Rex actually does deal a little bit less damage, at only 50 damage out to 15 meters and a 28 damage out to 37 meters. Now it does fire a smaller bullet, I know that, but for me, that is the killer when it comes to deciding whether or not I want to use the Rex or the Magnum. The Rex does have a little bit faster reload time at 3.6 seconds, whether empty or full, and both the Magnum and the Rex will hold 6 rounds. The Rex is just gone for me. It does no longer have a place in Battlefield 3. They've not given a good enough buff to this weapon to make it usable anymore. The 44 Magnum got buffed so heavily that it just outshines the Rex in almost everything. The only two things for me that the Rex does better, and which is mainly just stats, it reloads faster and it fires faster. That's it. And it not really significantly, only 30 rounds a minute, which is noticeable when you fire them side by side, but in close quarters, if you're pretty accurate with your shot, you're not going to notice it, just because the Magnum has got so much power behind it that you can just drop guys so quickly, especially with that one-shot headshot out to, I believe it's 30-something meters past there. I mean, it's just really, really far for a Magnum. So the Rex for me it's lost its place in Battlefield 3. The only situation that I ever find myself using the Rex in which it performs well is in very, very close quarters. If you're very accurate and have a quick trigger finger. The Magnum cannot fire, it can't fire quite fast enough as you can pull your finger basically. The Rex really can, and that's the only situation in which I found the Rex will outperform the Magnum. Everywhere else, the 44 Magnum really does better, but the Rex, once again, is a kind of just mixed up gun. I don't really know where to place it. Medium range, close quarters, I mean, I just don't know. You can try it at medium range. The gun is not quite as accurate for me as the Magnum is, but once again, the only situation I found the Rex does well in is close quarters. If you are pretty accurate and have a very fast trigger finger, that is where I found the Rex really does its best. Now, it may work for you at medium range or something like that, and if it does, great. Keep using it there. But for me, I find that close quarters, spamming that trigger and being accurate is where the Rex really shines. So, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and go ahead and leave me your comments what you think about the SCAR. Do you think the damage is high enough on the SCAR, or do you think you want it higher, or if you maybe just absolutely hate the SCAR, let me know why. Same thing goes with the Rex. If you're a Rex lover, let me know why you enjoy using the Rex, and if not, let me know what pistols you're using. I really like to know. So I'll talk to you guys later. Have a great day. Bye.